We're in. We're in. Cool.
We've gone down
Yeah.
to Jersey for a few days, and we got both kids with us. You're too young to have two kids, I think, but it's full on. Actually, this interview, if it can last an hour, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's chat for, I don't know, a couple of hours. Yeah, perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, yeah. I guess a bit of background into endurance sports, or even if that was kind of team sports. What's your kind of background there?
Uh, I've always been a sporting enthusiast, but I was never kind of top draw. I wasn't the last kid to be picked either, but I was kind of a good middle of the range kid at school, I suppose, in terms of sport. Definitely more enthusiasm than talent. I've ran kind of, I enjoyed the marathon. I think anything that's more kind of mind over matter suits me. You know, when it comes to natural kind of athletic ability, maybe that's a bit of a stretch for me. But I ran a marathon when I was pretty young. I think I was 17. Well, it's probably not young nowadays. I think it felt young then. You know, everyone else around me seems to be a bit older than me. And I ran a sub 4, but I really didn't train. I was very interested in going out and enjoying myself at the time. Really didn't take it particularly seriously, and ran a sub 4, which I was, you know, pretty happy with. Subsequently ran 4 more over the course of just like the years it came, and I think I just squeezed an under 3.5 in my Berlin marathon, I believe. I think it was 3:28, 3:29. So you know, fine, whatever. I kind of enjoy probably more kind of grinding, you know, long distance stuff that most people would consider to be harder. Although, you know, as we were just touching on, you know, a sub 25k, sub 18 5k is something that I don't think, you know, is really on my agenda. We're going to talk about the Marathon des Sables, right? And that's something that I love, the fact that people call it the hardest foot race on earth. You've ran it, right?
I've not. No, I've not done it. I've not done.
I thought like you had. I love the way people call it the hardest foot race on earth. My brother's done it. I like to think that I can do anything my brother can do, although I'm sure that's probably not the case. But for this, it's 7 days in the Sahara. You know, it's 55-degree heat during the day. You're carrying, you know, you're self-sufficient, so you're carrying all your food and what you sleep on for that week. And I think it's 254 kilometers, give or take, over 6 days. So it's about 6 marathons in 6 days, with a double on day 4, 88k on day 4. So I've never done anything like this before. I've done a half Ironman in Yongshiping, which I adored. I loved it. Like, I really loved it. You know, you came off the end of that, you know, wanting to go around again. And I don't know, man, I'm not really an elite athlete by anyone's standard, but I'm keen to give it a go, and I feel like it will be a real journey. You know, I love the fact that it's in Sahara. I love the fact there's nothing around you. I think it will be a real test of mental resilience. You know, halfway through the first day, you're going to feel like, you know, you wish you weren't there. And then you've got the whole kind of week to do it. And I don't know, I'm really looking forward. I think you'll come out of that not necessarily changed or different, but it'll be a really interesting and exciting challenge. I'm by no means looking for a record either. You know, I'm going to take it slow and steady wins the race. So they say.
What was the original motivation? Was it competitiveness with your brother, or kind of, what inspired you or that label of the hardest foot race in the world?
Yeah, I think the fact that, you know, it's perceived to be extraordinarily hard makes me want to do it. I like the mental resilience element of it. I feel that it's going to really grind you mentally, that one. I think, you know, it's my opinion that anyone can run a marathon. I don't mean that in a nasty way if you think you can't. I think that anyone, if you put your mind to it, can do anything. And I know that sounds, you know, a bit cheap and cheesy, but I do believe that if you really want something and you want to do something, you can do it and achieve it. And I guess for me, it will be, I've always considered that race to be very beautiful. I've watched a few documentaries about it, and I've heard, you know, stories from people doing it. And I just think, you know, we're quite busy. I'm sure you are as well at the moment with work, and, you know, we kind of grind away on the work side and the family side. And I suppose it will be an adventure that lasts longer than a day. You know, if you go and do an Ironman, you're done in a day. Half Ironman, you're done in half that time. You know, whatever, you know, smaller. And a marathon, you do in a few hours. You know, I guess this is a real opportunity to test yourself for a whole week.
And then you've obviously done things like Berlin and the Ironman, which have kind of like huge atmospheres around them. They've got it, you know, it's mind over matter, but you've got huge crowds lining the street, like spurring you on when things get tough. You don't have that at Marathon Des Sables. Do you think? Yeah, have you got the personal resilience just to click in there?
I think, yeah, it's that is a test, right? Because regardless of what kind of runner you are, if you run a marathon really slowly, it's not going to test you. If you run a marathon as fast as you can run it, it's really going to test you. And then you need the crowd to help you out. You know, even writing your name across your chest, I find when running marathons really helps, right? Because you get a bunch of strangers, you know, screaming your name, and it's a handy second wind that you've always got, you know, the whole way around, really, if you're doing it somewhere busy. And yeah, there won't be any of that in the Sahara. Look, mate, I fully, you know, I definitely won't break down. Well, I'd be very interested to see if I break down. You know, I'd put my money on me not breaking down. But I'll question why I'm there, you know, quite early on. I would have thought it was natural to do that, you know, because it is a big chunk to chew off. So if you imagine, not that you need to imagine it, you know, you're an athlete yourself, but like if you're carrying, say, 15 kilos on your back, and in order to not get sunburnt, you're also dressed. You know, you can't, you know, you don't have your shirt off, you're not comfortable, right? You got a big hat and drapey thing over your neck, and you're going to be uncomfortable. And you run pretty much a full marathon on your first day. That's going to be the hardest marathon I've ever ran by miles. And then it's not, you know, a beer or a clean G&T at the end. You know, you've got another 5 days of it, all of which are pretty much, you know, the next thing's harder than the first. So yes, you're talking to the wrong guy, mate, because I don't have experience of doing it. I spoke to Tom Evans, who you probably know, about it. We did a live on my Instagram, and I was amazed.
Watched it. It was good.
Oh, did you? Oh, thank you. I was amazed at how many people joined that, actually, and it was interesting because, you know, he's clearly just got grit, right? Like he not only can just bash out miles for fun, but he clearly enjoys it, and he's got this competitive streak in him that will be interesting to see if we can find, you know, in the middle of the Sahara. But, you know, I can tell you firsthand right now, if I laced up and, you know, bashed out a marathon today, I could do it, no questions asked, but I wouldn't want to do 5 more in the 5 days that followed it. And, you know, it's pretty pleasant here, and it won't be pleasant there. So, you know,
you say,
you know what you're signing up for.
You said you kind of like, you'll definitely question why you're doing it during it. Have you got a good enough answer to that? Are you ready for that?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we whenever my brother or I do anything that would be deemed tricky, we're doing it for our brother, typically Michael Matthews. He died when he was 22 climbing Mount Everest, and he at the time was the youngest Brit to summit, and then Bear Grylls became the youngest Brit to climb Mount Everest for a period because Mike died. And actually Bear's always been very kind to me, and has kind of kept an eye on me, and actually we see each other from time to time now. We've kind of become friends as such, 22 years later. So it's nice, and I'll have him in the back of my mind, and we look after about 5,000 kids at the minute in Africa in his name, the Michael Matthews Foundation. So I'll be raising money. So yeah, there'll be the additional pressure of there'll be a few people who will have thrown into the foundation for my efforts. So I think bailing won't be an option. Of course, so you have to complete the race, of course, for the people who have shown their support for Mike. So And also, you know, my brother's very strong and Mike was incredibly strong, and, you know, I feel like I'm from good stock myself. So, you know, I think that's kind of what life is all about, if I'm honest, is, you know, being incredibly comfortable is obviously something that people strive for, but feeling uncomfortable and grinding through it is what will, you know, make you stronger and build you into being a more rounded individual.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Tom Evans definitely said it, in that, you know, it is far and away as much a mental test as a physical one.
Yeah.
But notwithstanding, you're still running 6 days through the desert. How, being in London, are you training? Like, how are you kind of matching that situation? Is there anything you can do down here?
Well, again, you know, not to be boring, but this is what's coming out of a lot of, you know, whenever I seek advice from people on Instagram or however, you know, the overwhelming advice is, you know, don't bat your knees, maybe reduce the pace a bit. So don't necessarily, you know, try and burn as many calories as possible, and, you know, don't treat a run like exercise almost, just get miles in your legs. So just, you know, go on 20, 30K runs, you know, somewhat regularly in the lead up to it, just to get used to being, you know, out and about and moving for that period of time. I'm also doing a bunch of stuff in the gym. So like I lift weights at least twice a week. I roll jiu-jitsu for fitness, but I guess the weights is probably more relevant in this instance, you know. So I'm kind of squatting, and I'm doing a lot of compound movements. I've been told that, I mean, in life in general, I suppose it's handy to have, you know, a strong physique if you care about your fitness and sport and exercise. You know, being physically strong is clearly a benefit in any situation. So I've been working a lot on my squatting and deadlifting and bench press and kind of weighted pulls, and I feel that going into this, like, not a unit, like in terms of like a heavy, you know, lump to be carrying around, but I think having more muscle than usual might be beneficial in this situation. I know that Tom said it would be. You know, I think if you go in, like, you will lose muscle obviously and fat in the course of the race, but like if you go in stronger than you ordinarily are, I think that will help. Having strong legs, as an example, you know, tackling these sand dunes. Some of these dunes are, you know, the size of 4 or 5 story buildings. You know, you've got to go up and down, and then you round and up and over again. And in sand, that will nail your legs if you're not used to it. So, you know, if you build up an enormous amount of lactic acid in your legs from the first dune of the day, you know, running the rest of the day is going to be painful. So I don't know, mate. To be honest, you know, I don't drink alcohol, and I eat quite well, albeit quite a lot. I train very regularly. You know, my cardio is pretty good. You know, I'm not at elite athlete status by any means, but, you know, I'm fitter than your average bloke, I'd say. So I do think that if you go into it with a strong mind and, you know, you're physically pretty capable, I think you'll probably be all right. But who knows, right? I could.
We'll see.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, you obviously enjoy the gym, have been going to the gym for a while, and so are obviously clearly self-motivated as well. Does having an event locked in down the line motivate you more, or make you more accountable to those kind of sessions, or is that just something you do naturally now?
I think back before I was sober, it would, like, locking in an event would really help me kind of prioritize what's important. You know, like, I'd go out less and I'd stop drinking for a bit and I'd eat better, and you'd lose a bunch of weight and you'd feel great and fit and strong, and then you'd do your event, and old me would just fall straight back into, you know, bad habits, I suppose. But no, now that not to keep hammering the sobriety thing, and, you know, but for me, I kind of always feel good at the moment. Like, I never feel like I'm recovering, you know, or I tend not to waste days, you know, like I used to. So for me, it's kind of like when you build, on a base layer of fitness, you know, you do just get fitter and fitter and fitter and fitter, you know, whereas before it was kind of, I'd get really fit and then I'd lose it all, and I'd get really fit and I'd lose it all, and then I'd get, you know, in good shape and then I'd lose my shape, and then I get in good shape and then I'd lose my shape, you know, whereas now I feel a bit more kind of consistent with my efforts, I suppose. So yeah, of course, look, knowing that it starts on October 1st is going to make a difference to the way in which I train leading up to it, I suppose. At the moment, you know, you won't find me in Hyde Park running in the, you know, the sands, you know, with a backpack on my back, you know, getting ready for it yet. Although I'm sure I probably should be, but, you know, I'm not at this stage. I'll probably spend, you know, 6, 7, 8 weeks before the event, you know, just building up a bit of distance in my legs type thing. But I wouldn't be looking to shed a bunch of muscle and stuff. I think I'd like to go in there, you know, with the 15 kilo backpack on my back, feeling really light, you know, to feel nice and strong. You know, I think being depleted and really light for this race, for me, probably wouldn't work because I'm not used to it. Like running super long distances when I'm, you know, on a calorie deficit and really light for me is going to mean that, you know, I get to the end of that race and I'll just want to nail calories and food, which of course you won't have, and so in my opinion I'd just burn out after 2 or 3 days. So I think going in there almost heavier than you would ordinarily, in my opinion, might be a good strategy.
And so is there heaps of like logistical background stuff with something like Marathon Des Sables, nutrition, gear, like all these things that, you know, don't get talked about? They're not the most glamorous, but are clearly probably one of the most important. You
get some people who snap off the stem of their toothbrush to save weight in their backpack, and it's like, for me, you know, each to their own. I'm not quite at that level, I don't think, where that would make a difference to my run. That's part of going in super strong, is that I would hope that the toothbrush wouldn't be the straw that broke the camel's back. But it would be, no, I think you need to get it right. You need to look after your feet first and foremost. Obviously, it's very, very hot, and at night it's cold, and one of the nights you're running through the night. So your feet are going to go from being, you know, swollen and puffy during the day to not. And if there's any movement in your shoe, you know, and you get a big blister, that's going to be a real problem. Some people get really bad blisters on the first day, and they spend the next 5 days, you know, running with kind of crevasses in their feet, and you can only imagine that that's really uncomfortable. So, you know, so for me, I think it's looking after your feet. And there's loads of contradicting advice out there, you know, wear 2 pairs of socks, you know, don't wear any socks, you know, wear shoes that you've ran in for ages, or, you know, buy these light shoes and don't ever wear them before the race. And it's kind of, okay, so from my perspective, you know, I've taken some advice from Tom. There's a little shop not far from where I live, and you buy these shoes and you go and they sew in like a kind of specific garter for you. You can't, apparently, and this could be an idea for us, Aidan, we could launch a little business. Apparently you can't.
Absolutely.
You can't buy Marathon Des Sables running shoes with garters. Doesn't exist. So every single person you see in the desert who has garters, which is everyone, has them hand sewn in, apparently, by this. I've since forgotten his name, but it's I just find it. I would have thought, right, that there'd be a way of just having a garter kind of fit to a desert shoe, but apparently not. So I'm going to make sure, hopefully, that they do a very good job. I mean, imagine if they, you miss a bit, be a nightmare. You'd be them, obviously you won't have a phone, so you can't, but you'd be annoyed.
What? And is this a running shop, or is it just some person in their house that you take your shoes to and go back a couple hours later?
It sounds like it might be kind of like a Timpson's or something. It's like, you go in with these running shoes and you say, look, this garter needs to fit. No sand can enter this shoe. So you gotta help. But we'll see. It's I think a lot of people, for many reasons, will take it more seriously than I do. I'd love to be top 100. It's not something I'm going to set a kind of life goal on just in case. And also apparently one of the biggest issues is you can get a bit carried away because of, you know, the event. You can, you know, some people are really slow in it. Some people walk the whole thing. So like when you've got targets to pick off, you know, I'm terrible in the park. If I'm running in the park and I'm trying to stick to like the same pace for like a 15K, and I see someone running, you know, 100 meters ahead of me, I'll pick him off and I'll just have to carve him up, you know, and that doesn't bode well for the long distance stuff. So hopefully I'll refrain from becoming a heat seeking missile and trying to pick people off along the way.
Yeah, and I think something with a race like that is you're going to be surrounded by certainly some other pretty motivated, pretty impressive people. Are you going to try kind of lock into a group of your kind of standard and get that kind of support throughout the 7 days, or do you think you'll just lock in personally, do your thing?
I think it would be, well, our managing director at CleanCO is coming along for the ride as well. His name's David Folkman, great guy. I think in an ideal world, we'd run it together, stick together. You know, if one person was feeling it and the other wasn't, you kind of hold back a bit for them. Hard to do that just in passing. You know, I've run a marathon with a mate before, and you go, yeah, no, we'll run the whole thing together, and like literally 3K in, you know, when they're not, you know, when they're wanting to kind of pump the brakes a bit, you just go, oh, I'll see you at the end, mate. Yeah, you know. Yeah. But I think we'll have to see. You have to treat this a day at a time, and you have to treat it as just like, you know, you have to end each day in good enough health to do it again the following day. And I know, you know, as I'm sure you do, from caning a marathon as hard as you can, you know, the idea of doing it again the following day, you just wouldn't really be up for it. So yeah, I think we need to, you know, I think take it easy. I wouldn't want to walk the whole thing either, because that would be like insanely boring. You know, walking
so hard as well.
It's almost harder, right? So like, yeah. I think you're essentially, if you walk it, you're. It's a weird one because you're in the event for almost twice as long, although the times, you know, like you don't get that rest period, you don't get to chill, you don't get to. I was about to say you don't get to ice your legs, but you don't get to anyway. You're in the Sahara. So, yeah, perfect.
And that's the thing. So in the evenings, do you all finish up at camp and there's food and physios, or how does that work?
So you carry all your food. It's mainly dried food, as I understand it. I kept asking all these stupid questions. I was like, yeah, but kind of like a Trek bar is not like that heavy. I could just carry like 50 Trek bars. And you'd be sorted. They're delicious, and like, you know, they're full of calories, and like you'd smash it. And the guy I was talking to was like, yeah, apart from they'd melt in like the first 5 minutes, and you'd just have this kind of gooey mess, which would still be delicious, granted. But you know, I think it would become a bit, it would become a nightmare. So as I understand it, you have these quite high calorie, kind of carby, proteiny packs. Which look a bit revolting, to be honest, but you know, whatever. It's only 6 days, and you know, yeah, you have to carry it all. But yeah, going back to the packing, it's like the packing element apparently is like the hardest bit. You know, getting it all right, getting the weight distribution right in your pack, so that it's not kind of, you know, yanking you for the whole day, and you know, carrying everything. Oh, sorry, you asked me about camp. So the camp is there's kind of a setup. There's like kind of teepees. They sound like they'll blow over in the wind, but these won't. Essentially, they're kind of like slanted teepees, and there's a big semicircle of them essentially at the end of each day, but they don't close or anything. It's just like it's just like a roof essentially, and you sleep close to the bottom of that, and you bring your own sleeping bag and mat and whatever. It's part of your luggage. And essentially, yeah, I mean, you don't have to pitch tents as such, but it's not really a tent. And at night it gets really cold as well, apparently, although the stars are usually out, which I'm told is very beautiful.
For sure, cool. And then I guess dialing it back a bit, I suppose with content and in this industry, we kind of believe that people get inspired by people they can relate to doing things they can't relate to. yet. And Marathon Des Sables is a kind of good example of that. But you've had quite like a linear build up to it, and you've done some marathons, you've done an Ironman, and now you're doing Marathon Des Sables. For those just starting out, maybe their first 5K was the NHS Run for Heroes. What's your advice? How do you kind of build up?
Well, I hope it wasn't seen as rude. Somebody said, somebody messaged me because I think I commented saying, "Oh, I've just ran 20K," I think it was, and I put it as part of my training updates online, and she and a lovely young lady said, "Oh, I ran 15K the other day. What would be your advice, to get to 20?" I just said, "Well, just run another 5." It's like I think it kind of like, I think controlling your pace is a big part of it, right? And actually, running can be seen to be boring by a lot of people, probably people who don't run. It's actually when you get good at running and you can clear your head and you can really get into a nice pace, running's a lovely sport. And actually, if you're uncomfortable with a task that you've set yourself, whether it be your first ever half marathon or just you want to run 10K for the first time, just do it really slowly, like really slowly, to the point where you're a touch over marching, and just do it with a friend and talk the whole way. Don't get out of breath, don't push yourself in any way, just get the distance in. That really helped me. I used to go running with my brother back when he would run 30K, 35K on a Saturday morning, and I'd just be sat there thinking, like, if I run one lap of Hyde Park, like I'm battered, and it's because obviously he runs, really smooth and pretty fast, but we'd go running together, and we'd do, I think one day we went and we ran 6 laps of Battersea Park, and Battersea Park's 3.5K, and essentially we did it so slowly. We were running for about 2 hours, and we literally just, like, it was like a trot. We were chatting, and it was like this never-ending, slow, burny, long, but you burn loads of calories. It's really good for you. And then, like, once you've done it, that a few times, then you're used to the distance, so you can start to set a pace. Or I think anyone who goes out going, right, I'm going to run 20K this morning, and you set off like a rattlesnake, it's kind of like, it's going to get under the bonnet, it's going to hurt at some point. You're going to end up 10K away from home, and you've got another 10K back to do. And it's demoralizing. And actually, if you're not used to it and you don't love it, you're not going to want to do it again. So yeah, just take it super easy, super slow. If you're hopping on the bike and you're going to Richmond and your mate wants to do 5 or 6 laps of Richmond, just do them slowly. Just grind it out. Just don't build up loads of lactic acid. Don't burn yourself out. Just cover the distance. Covering distance is a great way to build.
For sure, yeah. I think that shared experience, finding a friend or someone that's just going to come with you, is huge for that accountability. And also, like, at the end of the day, you're gonna chat unless you really don't like them, and then that's kind of weird that you're running with them. You're gonna chat, and that's gonna slow you down.
For sure. I always think, like, sometimes you go for a, if you're going for like a single lap, or you're going for 3K, 5K, 6K, then it can be nice to just bang it out, where you've got a really elevated heart rate, from the first few steps. And you're kind of constantly having to control your breathing, and you're working out. That's a workout. And if you're doing that with a mate who's a good runner, great. And you don't talk during that. You just stick with each other and you get going. And you shouldn't be able to ask what your wife wants from the co-op on the phone whilst you're doing that. You should just be able to just get your head down and do it. There's 2 different kinds of running. The other kind is just take long distance, super chilled. Chat, get your phone out, bothered, doesn't matter.
And at the start, you said you'd have to do one of these a year. Presumably, I'm going to take it as a given after the Marathon Des Sables, but you probably won't want to do that every single year. Is there others on your sites, or have you kind of heard of other events you'd like to do?
You'd be much better at telling me the good ones than the ones I've heard of. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to. Well, when I did the Yongshiping half Ironman, like I literally got to the finish line and I was like, I want to do another one of these like next month. And like I very nearly caught that like weird Ironman bug that some of my friends catch, and they just like have to do like 5 a year, and you know, and then all of a sudden it kind of starts to hinder their like life at home and their work life, and they just become these Iron Man monsters. But no, I avoided that narrowly. I have to say, I did love it. God, I loved it. And I was at one point I was going to do. This is going to sound stupid because I really have no information, but there's an ultra race that's on a really small island. It's a remote island. Is it off the coast of Portugal?
It's not Corsica, is it?
I was going to do it with, I don't think it is Corsica. I was going to do it with a friend, and it was part of these, I think it might have been the Trek bars, and we were going to do it. I can't, anyway, sorry. You know, I can't remember, but I'm sure there's a load of incredible events that people don't even know about, that, you know, and that's part of the reason I love your platform, is that, you know, it's a really exciting place to just be able to scroll through all sorts of, you know, exciting opportunities in sport, I suppose, and to be able to sign up then and there is great. You'll be getting loads of people on the hook.
Yeah. I mean, is it the Azores? There's a couple big.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's a couple big ultras out there.
That's the one. Yeah, so I was going to do that. That one sounded awesome.
Yeah, looks good. Cool. Well, I mean, I'll definitely send over some recommendations. There's a few amazing ones in the UK as well. I'm biased, but some of the ones up in Scotland, up and around there are pretty unbelievable. I'll definitely send them over.
Mate, we'd love it.
Cool. That's kind of all from me. Unless there's anything more you'd love to touch on about the Marathon Des Sables.
No, mate, I'm all good from my end, but call me anytime. And I would say, you know, there's that Netflix documentary about kind of sporting events gone wrong. One of them is this guy, that Italian guy in the Marathon Des Sables. Have you seen it?
I've not. No.
He gets separated from the group, and don't tell my wife because she'll watch it and she won't want me to go. He gets separated from the group. He goes about 30 miles in the wrong direction. He ends up all on his own. This is ages ago. And he comes across this weird, like, little, not temple because it sounds a bit grand, but it's like this little stone hut in the middle of the Sahara. There was like a burial place, and in it there are all these bats. And he ends up like having to decapitate all the bats and eat the bats to survive, which by anyone's standards would be a real shocker, right? If that happens. So
sure, yeah.
So I'm thinking just stick within the flags. Don't end up at the little burial site or the little bat hut. Like, you know, at least now if I do end up at the bat hut, I know what to do, because it would not have occurred to me to drink the bat's blood, to be honest. But he did, and he survived. He was pronounced dead or lost, and he was found many days later. See, that's mental resilience. That's what the Marathon Des Sables is all about: survival.
Nice.